CNN, when it comes to the GOP tax plan currently in the conference committee process, everything is interconnected. Say that Republicans tweak the deduction for state and local taxes one way. Then, negotiators would need to tweak another provision as a result, whether for revenue purposes or to make the plan itself actually function. Turning the dials or tweaking the numbers is what you hear constantly from those involved. Need more revenue? Then turn, say, the repatriation rate up to 7% and 14% from 5% and 10%, as the Senate did in the final day of its bill consideration. As House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Rep.Kevin Brady of Texas said Monday night, "Nothing is agreed to until everything is agreed to." Bottom line. Negotiators are in the thick of the Rubik's Cube process. They expect everything to line up in the days ahead. But they aren't there yet. More dials to turn. Speaking of dials, there is no more potent dial to turn than the corporate rate. Move it up a point, and you've got an extra $100 billion or so to work with on the revenue side. That's why bumping the rate from 20% to 21% or 22% has been bandied about. But as we've reported multiple times, this is not something GOP leaders want any part of. Could it happen? Yes.It has been discussed and remains on the table, though somewhere toward the very end of the table, hanging mostly off of it. But if it does, it's a clear signal that negotiators are in a serious revenue pinch. Are Republicans still on track? According to negotiators and staff in both chambers, yes. The timeline. The current schedule, which Brady said Monday night is still on course, is to have a completed conference report by Friday. The Senate would vote Monday, December the 18th, and the House would vote the next day. President Donald Trump would sign the tax bill Wednesday. That timeline remains the current target for all involved. Out of the analysis, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin has been pledging for months that his policy team would provide an analysis that would show the $1 $5 trillion tax overhaul wasn't just revenue neutral, but would actually raise money over 10 years. That doesn't come anywhere close to lining up with any analysis that's been produced up to this point, so you can imagine just about everyone was curious as to what that analysis would look like. Well, Treasury released a one-page memo. It passed office said analysis on Monday, and we have our answer. It doesn't exist. To be clear, the memo did say over 10 years, $1.8 trillion in revenues would be created. If the tax plan was paired with a regulatory overhaul, an overhaul of the welfare system and a major infrastructure plan, it should be noted that, at least when it comes to the latter two, those pieces of the Trump administration's economic plan don't currently exist. Congressional Republicans and their top staffers had no clue the Treasury memo was coming on Monday. They were not pleased, according to several people CNN spoke within both chambers. Keep an eye on this. Negotiators are still grappling with the so-called Johnson Amendment to law that prevents 501(c) right(3) groups from directly participating in political activities. This ban hits churches and charities, and House Republicans included a rollback of it in their tax bill. The Senate did not. A primary reason: questions as to whether it would run afoul of Senate budget rules. The working assumption of many involved in the process is that it simply wouldn't survive the bird bath process and wasn't worth the trouble. But it's still very much under discussion, and it's something House and Senate Republicans are deeply interested in finding a way to get done. Speaking of the bird rule, as this process plods along, don't forget that the Senate rules are a huge piece of the ongoing negotiations. Despite the best efforts of House negotiators, the Senate rules will always win out in the end. That slows the process down and deeply frustrates the House negotiators. But it's the reality of moving the bill through the reconciliation process. Large transformative pieces of legislation are never perfect. Name the law, and there are bound to be unintended consequences. Now multiply that by 1,000, and you are staring at what a massive tax overhaul could create. It's something Brady willingly acknowledged to reporters Monday night, and made clear there would need to be future legislation to address those problems as they crop up. It's not necessarily the norm to have one of the primary authors of such a huge piece of legislation acknowledge that the bill won't be perfect, but it's also a reality-based way of looking at things. Which brings up an important point. The last 10 days have brought about reams of harried efforts by lobbyists and corporate interests trying to reshape, revise or flat out remove pieces of these proposals. It underscores one thing. This is moving incredibly fast. Like hyperspeed. Have Republicans and Democrats been chewing over reform proposals for years? Yes. Have they considered each piece of this in one form or another, at one point or another? Mostly yes. But have they done it in a comprehensive, fulsome fashion on these specific pieces of legislation? Nope. The timeline hasn't allowed it. That lends itself to technical problems. And technical problems in tax bill could mean millions or billions for specific industries. It's part of what lawmakers and staff are grappling with right now, the ramifications of some of the last-minute changes that have been made. The re-addition of the corporate alternative minimum tax in the Senate bill is the most glaring of these problems. Whatever comes out of conference will be a focal point of future bills' technical corrections, or otherwise, for years to come.